Shane Drapeshack for a Thursday night, back with some sports in focus, basketball in focus tonight. Getting ready to have the Haeco tournament coming up in town next week. So we'll start out with some Haeco basketball talk tonight. Worth Holleman is with us. Jim Gentry joins us later. We'll talk to Jim a little bit about the tournament too. Later on, we got Kiefer Langley and KJ Langley from Southwest will be stopping by. Worth Holleman with us. First of all, though, the chairman of this year's 2014 tournament. A lot has gone into the tournament prior to the opening next week. Got a lot of this preliminary work done, and that's kind of good in a lot of ways. It's almost like having a football team. You got like the preseason, the regular season, the postseason. A lot of your preseason work is done, Worth.
Well, it certainly is, Andy, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. This tournament has meant a lot to me. I've been involved in the tournament for at least about the last 8 years, and I feel like I'm in the home stretch now. The tournament started in earnest late in the summer, and as you might imagine, we are driven primarily by sponsorship sales, and that's where the main focus has been until now. We're in the operational stage of the tournament. So we've been working real hard now for about the last 4 months.
A lot of what you guys do, a lot of the Greensboro Sports Council's mission and their efforts is based upon businessmen in the community that also like sports to get together and try to work on projects. This has got to be your biggest project, I would think, of the year, and it's good to have those people with a business backgrounds. Not only can they try to get their business involved, to be a sponsor, to also support the tournament, also reaching out to other businesses as well.
Well, that's exactly right, Andy. We are an organization of in excess of 200 members and of different ages here, but primarily business people here in the community. And we reach out and ask that each of our members participate in the Haeco Invitational, it being our #1 event for the year. And as you know, the sponsorship sales and the other income from ticket sales and what have you go into the Haeco Invitational Fund, which is then dispersed primarily to the schools that participate. And I've come to understand that these schools really rely on the monies that we disperse to them for their athletic department. They literally, with the funding cuts that they've experienced on all levels of education, they've come to really rely on our donation to them to fund their sports programs from year to year.
And that's going to be part of their budget every year. They kind of pencil that part in, hoping it will match what they received the year before, and use that to help support all those sports all season long.
Yeah, and of course we don't make any guarantees. We simply cannot. One year, and I can't tell you exactly when, for instance, we had a severe snowstorm.
Oh, yeah.
And there was even some concern that the roof on the Coliseum, it was one of those ice storms that just was much worse than anybody anticipated. And of course that really just killed our ticket sales. People just couldn't get out.
Yeah.
Of course our sponsorship sales allowed us to still give back to those schools, but not quite to the extent that we had done in the past.
It's a good thing too, because you also have several scholarships that you hand out to the kids and allow them to earn those scholarships. Academic needs are met as well.
Right, that's correct. We call them the Bill Lee scholarships. This year, as opposed to the past years, this year because of a tie in the competition amongst the players, we give normally 2 women and 2 men. This year we gave 3 women. It came down to absolutely a dead heat, and so Bill Lee was very instrumental in our tournament. He is now deceased, and so we named the scholarships after him, and we give this year 5 $2,000 scholarships to the winners, who also are basketball players from the teams. And then it's a rigorous matrix of academics, their athletic play, and the community involvement. So it's those 3 things that are looked at to go into the determining the winners.
Yeah, I remember you were doing that back at the Haeco organizational meeting during the Greensboro Sports Council meeting a couple weeks ago at the Coliseum, and maybe Kevin McCoy was reading through, or someone else yourself reading through all the work that the kids have done in the community. That community work is impressive too. Some of the groups they've helped out, community youth groups, community senior citizens, all those different things they do, getting involved out there helping out.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have a daughter who's a sophomore in college, and it's just amazing. I've watched her and her friends come along, and the awareness, as opposed to when I came along, the awareness that that kids, young adults have today is absolutely astonishing in what not only that they go out and participate in what's already available, but in many cases they go out and actually create something. And there's one program that comes to mind here. It's called the Backpack Program, and they will go out for younger school children, and they'll go out before the season, before the class year starts, and buy school supplies and what have you for those kids that might not otherwise have them. So it's amazing how kids really do look for that kind of thing. So we are, as a matter of fact, this year, I'm glad you mentioned that. This year, for the first time, we have gone into each of the schools, and we have appointed an intern, or in some cases 2 interns. Their job is to simply, through the use of Twitter, through the use of texting, multimedia, is to generate excitement amongst the kids in the tournament. So hopefully we'll get a real good turnout, not only from the adults in the community and the parents of the kids playing, but also the kids in general, even though we start the day after Christmas, which is a tough time, but really the only time that we can have the tournament.
Yeah, because the way the schedule fell this year, plus it's a good thing in some ways because it did fall on the weekend. You got the Friday, Saturday. People are, after Christmas, obviously looking for something to do, kind of burned out on all the holiday celebrations, all the things they did on that day.
Exactly.
That Friday, look for someplace to go. Friday night's great. Saturday's good. And you get a day off on Sunday, come back on Monday. And all you're doing the first 2 days, the first day, you're setting the table for the semifinals. That's
right.
A big jump going from round 1 of those semis. Then on that semifinal day, you're setting the championships up. So really, there's a lot of work being done there among the players and the coaches to get you ready for those 3 days. So much goes into this, but it's a lot of fun once it all comes together.
Well,
and it goes fast. Once you get it, when the first day's done, the next 2 just fly to there.
Well, you're exactly right, and there's a rule that you know better, Andy, than I do, that there can be no high school contest on Sunday
unless weather interferes.
Correct. Yeah. And so at least this year, and it'll run also next year because of the 3-day run, we'll have a circumstance where we do give the kids a little extra time off, and this will be nice because it is the day prior to the finals.
Yeah, and the coaches might enjoy this too. They may not admit it now, but they may enjoy that Sunday off just to get prepared for the game on Monday. A lot of work. I bet those coaches' meetings will be really long and generated those days, that day on Sunday, preparing for that championship game on Monday. Got to be. I mean, I don't want to put any names out there, teams that may be in that final. I can just almost see that Greensboro Day School staff right now, Coach Johnson, Coach Smith, and Coach Johnson Jr., Robert Johnson, all those guys, and getting ready for that game maybe on Monday if they get to it. And who knows, Northwest Guilford, the number 2 seed, may be there. We may see possibly day 1. We're jumping all over the map because this is what it's all about. Basketball game,
exactly.
The ball's flying everywhere, so we're flying everywhere too. But that day 1 matchup between Grimsley and Page, 4 and 5, could be one of your top games of the tournament, and that's on day 1. It's kind of good too because it's the last game of the very first day.
Well, it certainly is, and of course they've been crosstown rivals forever. And I had no greater treat than my daughter was at Page High School getting ready for the Page Grimsley game each year, and all the parades and all the hoopla. And so it really the tournament has so many different aspects, and the rivalries that have developed are really one aspect. And I'm with you. The top 2 seeds, we could very readily see them in the final game.
Yeah, because between the 2 of them, they're about 20-0. I think Greensboro Day 13-0, Northwest Guilford right around 7-0. So between the 2 combined, 20 wins and no losses to start the season.
Yeah, and so again, everything adds up. And one thing I've got to say, Andy, after having been involved pretty intimately with the tournament over the course of the last 8 years or so, this tournament means a lot to those players.
Oh, yeah.
They want to win a Haeco championship.
Sure.
And of course, we've had a couple of teams that have had really astonishing success. But maybe this year we're ready for an upset, maybe even. And so we'll see.
What you like too, I think a good gauge, a good measuring stick, are the number of players, boys and girls, now young men and young women, that come back during their Christmas vacation. They played that tournament. They'll be right back in. I remember a couple of years ago. You probably remember it too, when Dudley was not in the tournament. They were playing a different tournament, maybe out of state, because at the time they were looking to get a little more national status.
Right.
They dropped out of the then Pizza Hut, now the Timco, now the Haeco, but they dropped out that for a while. And I remember P.J. Harrison and Helen Terry, both a couple of Dudley players, they had to get in that used to have the free throw shooting contest. They kind of free throw shooting contest. I mean, they want to be a part of anything going on out there.
Yeah, oh yeah. It really has been great, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say I want to thank in particular the Haeco people here, formerly Timco, purchased by Haeco. We likely, and I need to Google this, but we likely are the only high school basketball tournament with an international sponsor, and it really is interesting. Of course, presented by Newbridge Bank, and they are also an integral part. But it's amazing the things that the doors that Haeco and Newbridge have opened up for us. They are wonderful sponsors, and we really depend on them, and we really thank them for that.
And a big thing, a good thing too, that they stuck with you because they're going through a name change, kind of a takeover in some ways. New company coming in, they've only been with you like 1 year. For them to stick with you means volumes, because you don't want to get a new sponsor in, and we had these guys one night, we got somebody out. I mean, it just worked out good, the transition. And Hong Kong Aviation, more power to them, looking good.
Absolutely. And Kip Blakely and Kevin Carter will tell the story that when the first meeting they had with the Haeco people here from Hong Kong, they sat down, and before they talked anything about business, they said, "Tell us your community involvement." Well, I got to tell you, thank goodness that they were our sponsor, because they rolled out programs for the tournament and showed them, and the guys said, "We think this is great. Keep up the good work on the Haeco Invitational."
Good, that's good. That's what you like to hear. Now, what led you to the Greensboro Sports Council? Let's get back to some of your work.
Yeah, I've probably been in the Sports Council. I'd have to go back 10 years, maybe 12. Always been interested in sports, played sports in high school. Enjoyed sports. I think sports it plays an integral part in a young man and a young woman's rearing. Competition is wonderful, the right competition. I wonder sometimes anymore that there's a little bit too much in your face kind of stuff going on. But I played a lot longer, long time ago. So, but I see kids that little trash talk, and I'm not so sure about that. But that's the way it is.
A lot of people talk about the old school. They talk about the new school, and some people are not talking about the middle school. They were talking about that the other day. You're going a lot of different directions. So, not from Greensboro, though.
No, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, right out in Chatham County, right outside
That's a subdivision of Pittsburgh, right? Pittsboro.
Pittsburgh, yeah. But it's amazing how much that town has grown since I left. But it gets a lot of people.
Places like Pittsburgh and Mebane have just really blown open.
Had just taken off.
It's crazy.
It really is crazy. But then I went matriculated through Chapel Hill into Greensboro, and I've been here since 1974. And I will say, practice with the law firm of Carruthers and Roth. We have I think probably the best medium-sized law firm here in Greensboro.
Are you guys actually just Greensboro or statewide?
Well, we do work statewide, only office in Greensboro.
Gotcha. But always been a big sports fan, because like you say, you played back in the days. Back
in the day, yeah.
I mean, now they call them the Northwood Chargers. What nickname did you guys go by back
then? We were I'm glad Howard Coble asked me this. I don't know if you know Howard, and I know you know him, but he one of his things, he knows the nickname of every high school in North Carolina. And I told him, he said, "Worth, where are you from?" Pittsburgh. He said, "Oh yeah, Northwood." I said, "Well, I actually went to Pittsburgh High School." He said, "Don't tell me." He said, "Hold it right there." And he thought, he said, "Dragons." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "What about, but that's not all." He said, "It was a color. I said, "Right. Blue."
Blue Dragons. Wow,
the Pittsburgh Blue Dragons.
Blue Dragons. That's one you don't hear too much of anymore.
Well, you really don't. And then it became Chargers, Northwood, and I hadn't heard Blue Dragons or Dragon. Well, maybe there were some Dragons out there, but
that's not bad at all. Not bad at all. Supporting the high school level. Where does that, from your own personal instance, your own personal base, where all the support for high school company? I guess having been a high school player yourself makes you want to give back to the high schools. Having a daughter, you said went to Page, makes you want to give back as well.
I really got involved in the basketball tournament in a big way. I made a commitment that while she was at Page, I was going to really get involved in something involving sports and in a way to give back. And this was a very handy way to do it. It was something that I enjoyed, and I've been blessed enough to having gone up kind of through the chairs and into the chairman's role this year. and it has been very fulfilling. And as I mentioned earlier, these schools really do benefit from this tournament.
And like you say, the monies in the tournament that goes back to the schools, those monies come from the ticket sales and from the sponsorships primarily. You guys don't get any money off the parking or the concessions?
No. That's all Coliseum.
Gotcha.
And that's a good partnership with the Coliseum. They do a lot for us, and they actually are one of our sponsors and one of our platinum level sponsors, and a very good sponsor for us. They work well with us. We couldn't do it without the staff of Matt and Scott Johnson, Terry Ford, and it really has worked out well.
You think about the tournament. What's been the hardest part for you getting all this done? I mean, you've got your regular job, plus this is your volunteer work. What's been the hardest part about putting all this together?
Yeah, sometimes I think this is my job, at least this year. Mm-hmm. I think, Andy, without question, it's the sponsorship sales, because there's so many really worthwhile causes out there, and there are a lot of people that are trying to raise money for really worthwhile causes.
Sometimes it's tough to raise that new money and get the new stir going.
It is.
You love those renewals. Some people have been with you forever. Just do what you did last time.
But you got to have some new.
You got to stir up that new blood.
Well, there are a lot of companies that will move out of Greensboro, regrettably, or merge or whatever, and just you lose them. So you've got to get out and generate new sales. But I must tell you that this community has gotten behind this tournament 150%, and I couldn't be more proud of what I see out there. People are concerned. They like it. I think they see the benefit of the advertising, and they really are quick to give of their time and their money.
It's a good venue, too, the Greensboro Coliseum Special Events Center. For years, I think they played it in the Coliseum, but they moved it to the Special Events Center. A little bit more intimate in there. It's a little bit tighter fit. You like it because the fans fill the seats up and make it look more like it's close to being packed during the big games. And you couldn't beat this. And it's one of the few places and the few tournaments in the country that still play like in the public facility, like in a Coliseum setting. So many of them now, over the years, they tried that, but it didn't work out. And they were able to sustain it. The key word sustain. They had to move some of these back on campus or go to other places. But you guys have been pretty much, they did play some of the girls. It was first growing. Remember back in the old days, the girls had just the 4 teams, played some games down at Grimsley, but then they eventually moved on to the Coliseum. But keep it all together all these years, that's a big thing too. Never having to leave there, staying right in that same spot.
Yeah, and like I said, it's with the staff that the Coliseum has and the cooperation that they give us, it really is seamless from year to year. It's a great venue. Excuse me. We have actually thought about, and frankly, Haeco at times has talked about sponsoring and moving it, at least maybe the finals, into the Coliseum. But that's something that's in the future. We really don't need to do that. I don't think it's.
There have been a couple of occasions where you had to because of other events going at the same time. Every couple of years we had to, which is okay. I thought it was kind of neat to get a little change here or there. One year they had to move the game over to the Coliseum. I think it was about a 9 o'clock or 9:30 morning game because other activities were going on at the Coliseum.
That might have been the year that the NCAA wrestling or something was involved.
Maybe a case would be like a college basketball game flying through there too. Yeah, but I mean, the transition was almost, like you say, seamless because of the Coliseum staff's efforts and their help.
Yeah, they really do a great job. And again, just getting back to thinking about this tournament and what it does mean to everybody, but I just can't get over what I've seen with respect to the support of the community. And at my level, being the chairman this year, I really see how much the schools do depend on these funds, and it's just, it gives you kind of a warm feeling. It really does.
It does, especially when you get to that final day and it's all come together, and you're kind of, it's always kind of neat to see them pack up the boxes and stuff, load them up in the cars and haul things out that final day, cleaning things up. You know, there's been a job well done. You've had success.
Well, if we can just, I'm going to hope for good weather. That's always a concern. I purposefully haven't looked at the long-range weather forecast because I don't want to get scared if it's bad. But I'm really looking forward to the tournament. I look forward to being there. And kind of, I won't say my work is done because there are always issues that come up at the last minute. But for the most part, I will be at every game, or at least one of the two. There are 2 games, as you know, Andy, going on simultaneously. I'll be at one of those games and walking back and forth between games. And it's It's still a little stressful just because you want everything to be perfect,
Sure.
but I know that things are
you
never
look
going
up,
to be
you
perfect.
don't want to see a banner leaning sideways or something, and even little skirting around the tables. It's all got to be perfect in place. Let's do a shout out too for your co-chairman. Is it Chris Lowe? Is that
Chris
right?
Lowe.
Let's
Chris
give a shout
Lowe.
out for Chris Lowe as well.
Yeah, and he'll be right here with you next year. He's a great guy. He's done a great job.
It's good to have somebody like that.
Oh, boy.
One guy, I don't think, like you said earlier, could do all this.
Well, exactly right, Andy. And it's so nice to have. Last year, I served under Dan O'Shea, who did a tremendous job. He's in the multimedia business with Fairway Advertising, and he knew so much and taught me so many things that I had no clue about. This year, I hope I've taught Chris a little bit, but we both learned a little bit by fire, I think. But he has done a great job, and he'll be here as chairman. The co-chairman has not been picked for next year. He'll do that at some point in consultation with others. But he's done a great job. You're exactly right.
That's kind of good too, because you've been able to kind of pass on some of your expertise. Having been the co-chairman last year, kind of got you prepared. Now you can kind of help Chris in that same way.
And let me just point out, we've also had, and I've appointed this year, a number of committee chairmen. We have 3 gentlemen that are doing fundraising: Jess Washburn, Roland Trout, Mark McDonald. Donald Moore has come back to do us. He's kind of chief of operations. He deals a lot with the Coliseum staff to get all the details just right. We have Valerie Edson, who is kind of overall hospitality, and so we've really got a lot of good people that are helping us a lot. And it takes a little bit of the, especially the sponsorship sales. It takes an army almost. So it's good to have those 3 guys that have done a great job.
And it's a good thing too to have a lot of the former chairmen that are still around with the Sports Council, guys that have done it before, like Jim Gentry, and also guys like Kevin McCoy and the list goes, Donald Moore, all those guys that have been in charge. But we're good to have those guys around still helping too.
Oh boy, I tell you, Jim has just been instrumental, as have the others, because as you know, there's just no substitute for experience. And it's kind of like I have a problem, I go to them, he said, Worth, I've been there. Here's how you might want to look at it.
Maybe some problem comes if you do, you can't really believe anybody might not know a thing about it. Nobody's going to know about it. But hey, the guys have been there before, and they may have seen this happen before. You never know.
And it's amazing, as so many things, the devil's in the details. I mean, getting the banners up and getting them straight. I mean, getting, as you said, the piping, getting the tablecloths up.
Right, and you want the awards ceremony when you're doing the recognition. You want the PA system when they do the anthem. They do all the announcements. Want all those to be perfect too.
Exactly. And
this is your baby. You want it to go right.
Well, yeah, exactly. And not only my baby, but of course the Sports Council's baby. But the focus is a little bit on me this year.
Absolutely.
And I've tried to direct it back, and everybody has done. The man has done an outstanding job of really, they couldn't be happier to give.
Well, we're going to run it. When does it start? And give us some of the particulars. How much ticket prices, those things. People may not have heard a thing about this already. Give us those details.
Right. Well, the days again are the 26th, the day after Christmas, the 27th, then we skip Sunday and go to the 29th. The ticket prices are $7 for the first 2 rounds and go to $10 for the championship round on Monday night.
And at $7, that gets you in all day, right?
All day.
All day long.
For all the games.
If you're really quick, you can see about 8 games in one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back and forth between the 2 venues.
And we encourage people to do that.
It's interesting too. You think about $7. That's less than $1 per game flying back and forth between the 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's unreal.
And we think we're keeping those prices down. We want participation, attendees there. Get the community more involved. But again, I've got to go back and say we want the people there watching these games, and we really thank those sponsors that have made this all worthwhile.
Yeah, we talked about the women a little bit earlier too. Got to throw this out there because I think I'd be losing that if we weren't, because I always try to remember the kids. We were talking about James Summers earlier. Got the news today. James played in this tournament. James going to ECU to play football. We were thinking about basketball and also, Paige. At one time, to me, this was the Paris Key MVP tourney.
Oh, boy, yes. And
Paris Key, Paige, not this year. She was there for 3 straight years, won that MVP.
Yeah, I mentioned, it might have been to somebody at Paige. Paris is just, I was just a really big fan of hers. And I understand she's doing a great job at Vanderbilt.
Doing a good job, yeah.
And I think that she did something, and they put her on their sports information, whatever, I don't know, but she's a wonderful young lady.
I tell you what, Paige had a lot of success. I think they won it like 3 years in a row. And Darlene Joyner at Northwest, she's been somewhere around the title for a number of years. Since she took over for Coach Bob Yao, she's had a lot of success, and a lot of that success has come during these Christmas tournaments. And she's seeded number 1, so no surprise maybe to see them there again this year too.
Yeah.
Northwest Guilford Girls, if you hadn't seen that team, they're about 7 or 8 deep and got some great young ladies on that team. I mean, just a lot of talent. They played a lot of the travel ball together, those girls have, and they've got a solid team. And the team over at Greensboro today, Coach John Carty's got Tamara Thorpe. Tamara had 38 points the other night in the game, so Tamara can open it up in a hurry. And you got the number 2 seed Northern Guilford girls. They got the freshman, Elisa Canane. Canane is like 6'4" in ninth grade. I told somebody she's going to hit for 40 points one night this year before it's all said and done. She's just an outstanding talent. And let's see, the girls we talked about, number 1, you got Northwest. Number 2, you've got Northern Guilford. And number 3, you've got Paige, who's done so well in the past. And you got that Northwest team 1, day school, then 3-spot Paige, and then the 4-spot coming in, you got Greensboro. That's a great Final Four right there.
Oh, it really is.
And all those teams, Greensboro Day especially, I think they made it to the consolation game last year, just barely missed the finals. They all want to get in that championship so bad. Paige and Northwest been there so much, but teams like Day School and Northern Guilford, you ask Kim Furlow, I mean, she'd probably tell you right now, first thing, I want to get in that championship game.
Oh, yeah. They love taking that trophy home. And another thing, great information about Haeco. I think it's this year, so on January the 10th, we take the winning boys team, the winning girls team, and we go out to Haeco International, formerly Timco, and we tour the facility. And if you've never been, that is something really worthwhile. These kids, they see these huge planes with motors off, and the motor's sitting here, and they're working on the motor and the interior of these big passenger planes and these military fueling planes, and their eyes are this big like mine were and continue to be every time I walk in there. But we'll do that for them on the 10th of January. Again, Haeco is doing a lot of things. But Andy, just listening to you explain the brackets and talk about these teams, I'm getting really, really excited about this tournament.
Get you pumped
up. Not that I hadn't been, but I've been mostly involved on sponsorship sales. But now I'm ready for some basketball.
Yeah. You talked about you were at the UNCG Carolina game, North Carolina game the other night. That was interesting too, seeing Wes Miller go up as I guess his old coach here, Coach Williams.
Yeah, I saw him before the game. They were talking and laughing, but then it's all business. And Wes has done a great job. And I, of course, having traveled through Chapel Hill and spent a lot of time there, I certainly hope the Tar Heels can maybe get it together a little bit better. They've had a couple of tough games, not shot as well as I wish they had, but we'll see.
They're certain who's going to be with them this year. They don't have to go through that like they did last year. They know who's going to be there and who they're working with. And quickly, one other thing to add in, maybe 2 more things. Haeco will also have that job fair one day. I think it was Kip.
The career fair, yeah.
Career fair. I thought that was kind of, he said last year, it was just kind of an information session. They had people showing up with resumes. They're ready to go to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, and Kip will say, out of the resumes that were submitted to, at the time, Timco, now Haeco, they hired 4 people that submitted resumes at the career fair, which is just wonderful. That's great publicity in and of itself for the tournament, and it's a good thing for Haeco.
One other thing, I know you got to get rolling. We're going to get Jim, and next Jim Gentry's going to join us. But I put this on the website yesterday, heard a discussion about it maybe earlier this week. Giving it to you now, and you may need more time to go later, but probably off the top of your hat, you started. Who, if you've been a North Carolina man, who would be your top 5 North Carolina Tar Heel basketball players all time? Who would be your top 5 all time Tar Heel basketball players?
Oh, me. I go back so far now, you know, when I keep thinking of the championship.
You go back to Larry Miller, Dick Rubar,
I do.
Going back to Bill Bunning and all those guys, Rusty Clark.
Clark
Boy,
was a couple of years ahead of me in school. Yeah. But then you got to love the teams back of Worthy and Perkins, and Doherty was on that team, won a national championship with Michael Jordan.
That was the big 3, and a big 3 right there.
So we could sit here and talk a long time about their top players, but they've been lucky to have some. Then you look at Duke. I mean, golly, the ACC just has been a really wonderful. If you love basketball, it's been a great conference to be around over my lifetime.
In your time frame, back in your period of time watching over all that, I mean, that had to be probably the golden era of basketball too. Coming through the 70s on to the 80s. It kind of changed, got in the 90s and the 2000s because players came to the schools and they would be there 1 or 2 years and be gone. Back when they were there 4 years, you had time to get to know those guys.
And then, as you know, Andy, if you didn't win your conference tournament, you went back home.
Absolutely.
And you didn't go to the NCAA.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing about the high school. Football used to be the same way back in the playoff days. You had to win the conference, you didn't go to the playoffs.
And now it's
Northern
open.
Guilford would not have gone to the playoffs this year because they finished second in the conference to Eastern Alamance. And this is, like you say, back in the ACC days, remember 1974, NC State, Maryland.
Oh, man, what a
Maryland
great
team
game.
didn't get to go, but boy, the state team in double overtime, I guess it was, they go on to win the whole title here in Greensboro Coliseum.
Unbelievable.
That's what makes basketball such an interesting sport.
And again, you've got me excited about the Haeco Invitational.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Worth, good to see you as always.
Andy, thank you very much, and I appreciate everything that you do for the tournament, and we can't say enough, but thank you very much.
No relation to Earl Holleman, right?
The actor?
Yeah.
Spelled his name a little different.
What about? I was thinking about that. Earl Holleman.
He spelled it with an O, mine's with an E.
Yeah.
E-M-A-N versus O-M-A-N.
He was in Police Story, I think, that TV program.
I think that's exactly right.
Exactly right.
Well, thank you again, Andy.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Next week.
Thank you.
Worth Holleman with us, and Jim Gentry's going to join us next. Enjoyed talking to Worth. Also enjoyed. Worth, you want one hush puppy before you leave?
Thank you, but I appreciate it.
You've had a busy day eating food, I know. You told about it earlier.